So let's talk about a diet that asks your body to do something pretty radical to completely change its fuel source. You've probably heard of it, the ketogenic diet. It's everywhere, right? But it's also surrounded by a ton of hype and honestly, a lot of confusion. Our goal today is to cut right through all that noise, take a look at the actual science, and really understand how flipping this metabolic switch works. Let's dive in. So here's the game plan. We're going to start with the basics. What even is the keto diet? Then we'll get into the science of ketosis, see how it's being applied in a really fascinating study on Parkinson's disease, and then we'll get practical and talk about how to actually build your plate. We'll even cover ways to adapt the diet and avoid some common mistakes before we wrap it all up with one big final question. It's a clear roadmap, so let's get going. All right, first things first, what is this diet really? Let's just forget all the complicated stuff you might have heard for a second. At its absolute core, it's all about changing the fuel your body runs on. Simple as that. Okay, so the whole idea is to trigger a metabolic switch. By cutting your carbohydrate intake way down, you're basically forcing your body to stop using glucose, sugar, for energy. Instead, it starts burning fat for fuel. This whole state is called ketosis, and that's the entire goal. Your body starts producing these little molecules called ketones from fat, and those become your new main source of power. And this chart really shows you just how different the structure of this diet is. I mean, it is a complete flip from what most of us are used to. Fat makes up the huge majority of your calories. We're talking 70 to 75%. Protein is moderate, and then carbs, they're just this tiny little sliver, usually around 5%. So to be super clear, this isn't just low carb. It is very low carb. So we've got the what, but what about the how? Let's get into the science and see what's actually happening inside your body to make this metabolic shift possible. Your body is incredibly adaptable. It basically has two main fuel options. On a typical diet, it's a sugar burner, running mostly on glucose from carbs. It's fast, it's easy energy. But on a keto diet, your body becomes a fat burner. It starts running on ketones made from fat. And here's a really crucial point. Ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier, which means they can provide a steady, stable fuel source for your brain when glucose isn't around. So how do you actually get into ketosis? Well, it's a pretty clear four-step process. First, you have to slash your carbs. We're talking under 50 grams a day, typically. This makes your body burn through all of its stored glucose, which is called glycogen. Once that's all gone, your liver gets the message and starts converting fat into those ketone bodies we talked about. And finally, your brain and your other organs adapt and learn to use this new, super efficient fuel. And hey, if you're finding this explainer helpful, please give it a like. It really helps us grow. Now, this metabolic shift, it's not just for weight loss fads. The ketogenic diet actually started out as a medical therapy, and researchers are still digging into its potential. So let's look at a really compelling study that looked at a modified keto diet for patients with Parkinson's disease. To really get why this research is so important, you have to understand the sheer scale of the problem here. Parkinson's disease affects an estimated 8.5 million people all over the world. And get this, that number has doubled in just the last 25 years. That kind of urgency is exactly why scientists are looking down every possible avenue for managing this disease, and that includes nutritional strategies like the keto diet. The results from this 12-week study were just incredibly promising. First off, adherence was 100%. Every single person completed it, which shows that this modified, low-dairy version of the diet was actually doable for patients. Blood tests confirmed they all got into ketosis and stayed there. But here's the most important part. Patients saw real, clinical improvements in their motor symptoms, and every single participant either maintained or improved their quality of life. The thinking is that ketones might just be a more stable, efficient fuel for brain cells, possibly protecting them from stress. And if you find these kinds of scientific deep dives as fascinating as I do, hit that like button to let us know. And the study's conclusion is really powerful. It suggests that a tweaked version of the diet could offer genuine benefits, while also being potentially safer by limiting dairy. This is a perfect example of how the keto diet is being looked at as a serious therapeutic tool, not just a way to lose weight. What do you think about this? Drop a comment with your thoughts. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives just like this one. Okay, we've covered the theory and some pretty heavy science. So now let's bring this all back to your kitchen. How do you actually put together a keto-friendly meal? So, what's on the menu? Well, it's all about focusing on nutrient-dense whole foods. You're going to build your meals around healthy fats like avocado and olive oil, quality proteins like fatty fish and grass-fed meat, and a whole bunch of low-carb vegetables, especially things like spinach and broccoli. Full-fat dairy plus certain nuts and seeds also play a really big role. And on the flip side, you have the foods that will absolutely stop ketosis in its tracks. And it's not just about avoiding the obvious stuff like soda and candy. You also have to cut out grains and starches. So goodbye bread and rice, most fruits, legumes like beans and lentils, and starchy veggies like potatoes. Basically, if it's high in sugar or starch, it's off the table. But wait, avoiding most fruits doesn't mean all fruits. Berries, if you're smart about it, can definitely fit. This is where you have to understand net carbs, which is just the total carbs minus the fiber. As you can see here, blackberries and raspberries are super low in net carbs, making them a fantastic choice. Blueberries, they're still an option, but they have almost 3 times as many net carbs, so portion control is absolutely everything. All right, so following a food list is one thing, but making this diet actually work for you in the real world, that's a whole other story. Let's dig into some common variations and the pitfalls that can really trip people up. Okay, let's bust one of the biggest myths about keto right now. You hear keto, and you probably picture piles of bacon and steak, right? Well, that's just not the whole picture. With some careful planning, a completely plant-based or vegan ketogenic diet is 100% possible. You just have to be a little more strategic about where your protein and fats come from. So where does that protein come from? It's all about these plant-based powerhouses. Fermented soy like tofu and tempeh are absolute staples. So is seitan, which is made from wheat gluten. Certain high-protein nuts and seeds are also crucial, along with low-carb vegan protein powders. By the way, if you enjoyed this breakdown, give this video a like to let us know. It really helps the channel out. Okay, now for a question that makes so many people want to pull their hair out when they're starting this diet. You think you're doing everything right, but you're just not getting the results you want. Well, the culprit is often hidden carbs, lurking in places you'd never expect. And I'm telling you, these sneaky carbs are everywhere. Processed meats often have starchy fillers. Condiments like ketchup and BBQ sauce are just loaded with sugar. Even so-called sugar-free foods can use sugar alcohols that still mess with your blood sugar. You have to become a label-reading ninja, seriously. You've got to check everything for added sugars and sauces or starches in your spice blends. Wow, we have covered a ton of ground here, from the cellular level all the way to the grocery store aisle. So now let's just zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture. If there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The ketogenic diet is not just another fad diet with a list of good and bad foods. It is a precise, powerful metabolic tool that is designed to fundamentally change how your body makes energy. And because of that, it demands really careful planning. And one last time, if you learned something new, hit that like button, comment below, and please subscribe for more explainers. And that brings us to our final and, I think, most powerful question. We've seen the potential of this diet in a condition as serious as Parkinson's. It really forces us to ask, could intentionally changing our body's primary fuel source be a key to unlocking new ways of managing some of our most complex and difficult health challenges? It's a fascinating thought to end on. Thanks for joining us.